Hey everyone, welcome to a daily cinephile vlog. Sorry it's been a few days, but I am catching up on some recent movies, and the newest one of 2022, probably the biggest movie to come out this year, given that it's only January. It's Scream. Not Scream 5, just Scream, which, was a title I had issue with because why not just call it Scream 5? The other ones were called Scream 2 through 4. Why not just call it Scream 5? But now, having seen the movie, I actually think there was a good reason for it. Scream without Wes Craven, who passed away in 2015, a Scream movie released in January, and a Scream movie that, from the trailers, looked like it was taking itself a little too seriously. I didn't really have a lot of hope for. I was thinking this was going to be a dud. I thought that maybe the franchise had done everything at this point. Even from the trailer, it was bringing up how, well, we have this modern technology now, we have cell phones, we have so many different ways to, track people, and, we could do so much with technology. So I felt a lot of this was already done in Scream 4. I didn't really know what else they could really say at this point because they've already brought up social media and the effects of it, and how the online world has completely changed the landscape of being a serial killer. I didn't really know if there was really much left for the franchise to do at this point. I don't know if it had waited enough time. They probably could have made another sequel after Scream 4, but they waited many years. It's been 11 years, which is actually the same amount of time that went between the fourth and the third film, so I kind of figured, why are you doing another one now? I don't know what new, especially with like movies or with technology in general, that you could comment on. However, I completely overlooked some different ideas that were brought up in this film that made this film completely necessary. This is an entertaining slasher film. It once again goes back to the roots of the original Scream by commenting on so much of what's going on in the current horror landscape, but also commenting on movies in general, and also on the technology that is currently, changing the landscape again for serial killer. This time, so Sydney and Gale Weathers, they both no longer live in Woodsboro, which I guess makes perfect sense. Dewey still is in the area and likes to keep tabs on any different commotions that may go on involving the murders that occurred in the late 90s. We have a new cast of characters, the new kids, which, similar to Scream 4, we have a bunch of younger actors taking on the roles, and we maybe don't learn enough about their characters. Certainly kind of feels like Scream 4, where we just didn't get a lot of them, but they're there. They're there as the replacement for the original characters, and the murder is on the loose again. Ghostface is back. The first scene, very reminiscent of the first film, but this time it's a little bit of a twist. The victim actually survives, and that is kind of the central point of the film. They keep Ghostface's after this girl in the hospital for a majority of the film, and we meet her sister, who we find out, and there's going to be spoilers in this, so I just want to say it is a good film. If you're a Scream fan, I think you'll enjoy it a lot, but there are going to be spoilers here. We find out that she's, in fact, the daughter of Billy Loomis. Billy Loomis, who was with Sidney Prescott in the original film, apparently ended up with some other girl at some point. He had the most eventful 1996, I guess, of all time, between being murdered, being convinced by that guy from Scream 3 to commit these murders, who I guess was actually, God, Sidney's half-brother. These movies are so weird. And then I guess in the meantime, while he was starting this fake relationship with Sidney, he was also doing it with another girl who had a child. What do you know? So that's where everything is connected to, and then we have our main accomplices, which are the friends of the younger girl, Tara, who is the first victim. So from there, it's basically what we've seen from Scream before, except this time they do like to comment on the fact that there's been a lot of, as they call it in the film, requels. We actually get the Randy, who sadly passed away in the second film. We actually meet his niece and nephew, who they are taking up their uncle's mantle with all the horror knowledge, and they explain the rules of a requel. With a requel, they don't want to exactly be a straight-on sequel to, just another sequel in the long-running franchise, but they also don't want to be a remake, but they want to reboot the franchise by taking everything back to its roots with legacy characters, similar to films like Halloween, Star Wars. I mean, you know what they're talking about. They brought it up, and they even specifically bring up Stab 8. Stab 8 hadn't existed when we had seen the last Scream movie, but they comment that there's a movie called Stab 8, which was directed by the guy who did Knives Out, and that the fans did not like it. You already know where things are going here. And you know what's funny is that I actually thought that was going to be a quick joke, just, a little thing, a little jab at The Last Jedi, and both sides of it also. Like, they bring up the whole, like, how everybody was so focused on that movie, and it became, like, the civil war of cinema for some reason. And you think it's just going to be in there as a joke, but it actually plays into the ending of the movie in a very clever way. I have to say, this is, to me, the funniest and best motive in the Scream franchise so far, and easily the most reminiscent of Stu from the first film, which I always liked. I always liked the Scream movies when the, motive is pretty random, pretty stupid, pretty crazy, rather than, oh, it's connected to someone from my family, oh, I'm getting revenge on someone. No, the best, to me, the best murderers in the Scream franchise have been Stu in the first film, who had pretty much no motive, and Timothy, a la Fantastic. He also had no motive. He was just crazy. So I like that the most. And this film definitely goes back to that. I will say that the murderers themselves are pretty easy to figure out. Like, I didn't think it was too difficult, especially if you've seen some of their work in other films. You're going to know which one specifically I'm talking about. But they're in another movie that was pretty big a couple of years ago, where they played a pretty similar role of a murderer, and I was like, please don't do that, because I already guessed it, just because it's almost like a typecast. I already figured this person would have done it, but granted, again, because of the way that they explained their actual motive towards the end of the film, I thought made everything worth it. It makes it worth it. But I gotta say, as far as the, as the film would call it, legacy characters go, there's not a whole lot of them in this. Gail and Sydney show up pretty late into the film, and, they're in it enough. I don't feel like they needed to have their parts expanded or anything. I think they're in it the necessary amount. We actually do get a little bit more of David Arquette, but again, probably in the end, I feel like he's probably in the film just about as much as the other two. The only difference is that he shows up a little earlier. But he actually, to me, gave his best performance in all the Scream films. I'll also say I think this might be my favorite Scream sequel, just because, and it's funny because, this film is almost making fun of the whole let's make a reboot / sequel / something that like Star Wars did, or Jurassic World, or as the film straight up points out. But, I do kind of appreciate those aspects of a sequel anyway. And that's what's always been clever about Scream. While they always kind of make fun of different film cliches and such, they also are doing the cliches and do the cliches pretty well, for the most part. I mean, Scream 3, I don't know, had some problems. But, this one, I thought it was in tone, or it was in line with what other, as they call it, requels have done. That I appreciate what, recent requels have done. And I thought it made fun of them well enough, and I thought it was, a well-paced film. The only thing that maybe bothers me about it, though, as far as saying that it's my favorite of the sequels, is that aesthetically it doesn't really match the previous movies, which makes sense because Wes Craven's obviously not involved. He passed away, and this is a new crew for the most part. It's a new time, and even from the trailers, I thought the film maybe was going to take itself a little too seriously. It doesn't, it does have a lot of the humor that you would have seen in the other Scream movies, but still, in a way, it maybe was a little too serious, and maybe they could have toned it down a little bit. So I can't really say that it's in tone with the previous films, but they did pretty much the best they were going to do without having Wes Craven around. And this really is, it is a tribute to Wes's franchise. I think it does a well job of being the fifth film in the franchise, and it doesn't feel outside of it, even if aesthetically it doesn't exactly match up. But that's fine. It's a new direction, it's a new age, and the film comments on it anyway. And there are some pretty good surprises in this. I'll say this about Ghostface. Ghostface being one of my just favorite horror icons, which has been played by a number of different characters. It's not like Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees or Freddy Krueger. It's always someone different. But what I love about the Ghostface, what makes him my favorite, or her my favorite, is the fact that Ghostface is a klutz. They're always just running into crap. They're running around like a maniac, and it's exactly what you would expect from a just everyday normal idiot, what they would do if they were just in a mask. And then that mask is so iconic, and the weapon's iconic, and I love that character. However, I do feel with this film that the character was toned down a little bit too much. I didn't feel like there wasn't as many pratfalls in this one, which I think is what makes Ghostface so iconic. The fact that he's a bit of an idiot, or she's a bit of an idiot, either or. So I was a little disappointed by that, and also the kill. There's not too many kills in this. In fact, like the first kill is not even a kill. He doesn't succeed, or she doesn't succeed. So I keep going back and forth on that. I guess I gotta call Ghostface a they or an it. I don't know, but yeah. They fail with the first kill, which right away I was like, this isn't Ghostface. This isn't what Ghostface does. Grant, I guess that is kind of the primary focus of the film, though, is the fact that this person does survive, and it is a bit surprising. It's like, wow, for once, the first person killed in a Scream movie survives. What do you know? But I still think that the character could have been a little more silly, more of what we had seen in the first 4 Scream movies, and the kill count was low, but at the same time, I guess once you get to the ending and you realize that they're trying to just go back to the roots of the first film and what made the first film great, it's almost like possibly the creators simplified Ghostface a little bit more by letting the kill count be a little bit lower, like the same amount of kills as the first movie, because that's kind of the point, the crux of the story towards the end. But then again, they also still don't have the pratfalls, which I think Ghostface had the most pratfalls in the first movie. I don't know. To me, I have to say, I love Ghostface, horror icon, but also one of the great comedic icons of our age. Come on. So that part of it, but that's a little bit more of a nitpick. That's just me being like, I want to see the Ghostface that we saw in the first 3 movies. Come on. Overall, I had a great time. I'm kind of bugging myself about whether I would give this a 4 out of 5 or a 3.5 out of 5. I think I'm going to go for the 3.5 out of 5 just because I don't know if it would hold up as well on a second viewing. But I enjoyed it a lot, and it felt very necessary. Surprisingly, a horror movie released in January was great. And I think it would be good to, again, let the franchise sit. If this is the final film for a while, that would make sense. I don't really know what else you could do with Scream at this point, but then again, I said that with the last one. I didn't really know that they could do anything with a Scream movie, given that I didn't feel like much had changed since the 4th one. Yet, I realized while watching it, oh crap, yeah, we don't do remakes anymore like the 4th movie was making fun of. Now we just do the first movie with the original cast, and it's a reboot or whatever. So, yeah, I guess we'll have to see where cinema and movies go in the next 10 years, and maybe Scream will come back and have something even better to say. It always seems like they come back at the right time. Now, anyways. So, go see it. It's a great time. It's good to see you back, Ghostface.